So most brands never reach $1 million a month, let alone $250 million a year. And that's all because they're focused on the wrong thing at the wrong time. And today I have with me the man behind Loop Earplugs success. He took them from $10 million to $250 million in under 2 years, all because of his growth mindset. He knew exactly what to focus on and when. We worked with him at Cure and he's helped us scale to $100 million. And I really believe what he's sharing with you in this episode is going to unlock growth for you and your brand. So pay attention. This one's an absolute banger. Let's get into it. Alex, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. So look, obviously your story is interesting, right? And the biggest success that we've seen publicly with you, it's you've taken Loop Earplugs from 10 to 250 mil. So I guess in the next 30, 45 minutes, let's try and deep dive as to how you even made that possible, because that growth was tremendous. We've been also working with you as a fractional, let's say, head of growth for the last, 4 to 6 months. And he's also transformed how we do things at Cure, and he really helped us scale. So there is some method to him and something's working. So yeah, please tell everyone a bit more about your story, how you got into, the role at Loop before that, and we'll kick it off from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So honestly, at Loop, I started working with them as a freelancer like a while ago, and really was because actually I was working for Tomorrowland back then, and we were doing some good sales at Tomorrowland, doing some Loop earplug sales over there, and I saw opportunity also to maybe go work for the company themselves and the Loop earplugs, right? Because we were selling Loop earplugs. The Tomorrowland store went amazingly well, good sales, and I'm like, hey, let's maybe see if we can scale it up also at
But
them.
before that,
Which
you're doing nothing digitally. You're just selling what at the festivals, or
no, digitally. So, by example, we were
right?
selling our earplugs, by example, at the festival, but also at the online store of Tomorrowland.
Got it. Okay.
So that's where I got into like, oh, these guys are really cool and they're selling really cool products and it looks really fashionable. So it's like, yeah, there must be something behind the madness there of selling earplugs, because it sounds like really stupid products. In if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah.
people like, oh, you're selling earplugs, and they will tell you, oh, good for you, and then you sell, hey, but I'm doing 200 million of it. They're like, oh, it's getting serious
Yeah, it's
business.
nuts.
So it's nuts. No, so that's how I got into in the company, and then working with them for a while. But the reality check and being the biggest lever there that we pulled is just diversity, times experimentation, times mapping everything out. As in, you kind of want to forecast your assets, you kind of want to forecast your experiments. You go from this mentality, as in, I want to do as much as possible, as efficient as possible, as diverse as possible. And I think that is like the three formula, the three metrics that I kind of used in how we structure marketing at Loop, right? For example, we went into 37 use cases and we explored every single use case, like from sleeping, for example, for earplugs, to parenting earplugs, to restaurant earplugs. And then we found out, as in, okay, how much ads do we need for that? And if we do more ads, do we get also more revenue? And it's sometimes making those bold bets that kind of allowed us to get there. So that's a short intro, but I will tell you, it's been an amazing journey. Like, honestly, scale a team from 0 to 40 people in less than about 2 years. Huge amount of revenue growth, global scale. So there are a lot of components also came on top of that, but it was a fun journey.
Yeah, and let's double click on what you said there, because I think when you came and started working with us, that's probably one big thing that we kind of learned was that, well, let me take even a step back. On that first call, when I was asking you like the potential working together, you said, look, Matt, whatever I do, it's nothing special. It's nothing new. I just find out what works and I double down on that. And I guess
Correct.
that wasn't a simplistic answer, but when you came and started working with us, I really understood what you meant, where you went so granular in terms of where the team's spending every single second of their resources, the cost per specific creative on the specific channel, different formats. Like you went so granular and getting our reporting system to that level of detail where we could make more, I guess, better educated decisions.
Yeah.
So if that's what I'm, yeah, want to drive home. So that was the key, right? But how do
Yeah.
you set up that reporting? Like, because what would you do? Because at 10 million to 250 million, there's certain constraints you probably had to solve along the way. What were the constraints you were solving it from 10 to 50 or 50 to 100? Or were they all the same thing, just probably putting your attention on different resources depending on what was working?
Yeah, okay. So here are like two questions, right? So like, first of all, what are the metrics that you kind of need to do that to like
Yeah.
measure and better? And the second question is like, what are the pain points that you might solve throughout the way? Like, how can you scale so fast? Like, what is needed to scale so fast? So on the first question is the metrics that I often use. Um, if it goes to advertising, it's very easily. It's always revenue per ad, per channel, per category, per use case, per product. It's like I want to understand that super well. Revenue per ad for me is super, super relevant as a metric. And I think the bigger a company gets, the more relevant it gets. Because you have companies that scale at like 500 euro revenue per ad and then they just die out because they not understand like how an ad can really drive like a lot of revenue. So that's
Yep.
one thing. The second thing is focusing on success ratio. It's a metric that
What's that?
success ratio, sorry,
Success ratio.
success rate for me means how if you produce 100 ads, how many percent of those ads actually are working for you, right? And by example, the goal benchmark I use is minimal 20%. But I think some companies are amazing. Like I know a couple companies like 30%, 40% success ratio, like incredible numbers.
Like us.
Like you guys, it's insane. Like, I was going through our accounts. I was like, that's insane how much
Yeah.
percentage are actually achieving it. But also maybe it's too much.
Yeah.
Maybe you're paying to save then a little bit, you know? So
Yeah.
not necessarily always a good thing. But for me, it's like if you put them in place, the metric itself doesn't really correlate to anything because, okay, yes, you know how much ads are successful, but success is defined as in above a ROAS target. But if you have 100 ads that are right above ROAS target and spending a minimum amount of spend of 100 euros, the value of that metric is also not really correlating. So that the combination with your revenue per ad, and then you, like you mentioned, like the narrow niche about every use case, about every funnel, about every product, and understanding that concept, that is for me like step one. Now that's the mentality. That's the vision I think that you also I share with you, and I'm really happy that you also went with that vision with me. The next step for me is using that knowledge, that mindset across the board across all your departments. So both in affiliate marketing, like what is my revenue per partner that I sign, by example? How much are they making for us in general? And then from which categories are these partners coming from? Is it from benefit platforms or is it from community platforms or is it from closed platforms or where are they coming from? Cashback websites and so on. Same with influencer marketing. If I sign 100 influencers, how much revenue per influencer am I making? And is it per person? And then you can even build in a way, and I kind of did that. I don't know if it's legal in some countries, but you can build in a way that you can build a sales team out of it, where you say, look, you have credit strategist A, first credit strategist B. Credit strategist A is making 12K per experiment or 12,000 euros revenue per ad. Credit strategist B is making 8,000 revenue per ad. It gives people incentive like, hey, these people is doing better for me, so therefore I also want to get there. And as a head of growth or a CMO, it gives you a very, very easy understanding on what is driving the revenue and where you should start steering and where you can spend your time at. So I think that's the mindset that we implemented. And then the second question you asked me was, hey, interesting. So what if I found something winning for us, by example, right? And I have a winning formula. How do I get from making hundreds ads or 100 experiments to, by example, 2,000 experiments or 2,000 ads a month? The reality check is that you have internal capacity and external capacity, and I think we both know it. As in, your
Yeah.
internal capacity, you can only leverage it through, by example, AI right now. It's insane how you can leverage through AI, how you can multiply it, but it can only can often go to times two, times three, times four, right? And then you have external capacity, which is of course your agencies you can implement or any other partners you can do. And yes, in reality, you do want to always have this healthy split between half agencies and half internal, because if your company goes well, right, it's very easy to scale up with external parties. But if your company goes bad, then it's easy also to decrease the external parties without cutting your own OPEX a little bit into your own teams. So I do always recommend that for a setup that's always more healthier. But working with both internal parties, external parties, they require very, very clear guardrails. Like what I'm expecting from every single party, what I'm expecting from revenue targets, what I'm expecting from ROI targets. For example, I had a clear ROI calculation for every single agency I was using. I had like 6, 7 agencies in the prime times.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
exactly knew how much ROI I was making
That's
from every
nuts.
single partner. So that gives me super fast decision making power to
Yeah.
say, look, you make me 20% profits, you make me 30% profits. I actually need 15% profits actually to make a company profitable. So I'm gonna scale you both. I'm gonna increase both of your ad spends, both your creative budgets. So that is a mindset that I often had. And then quickly going back to those guardrails, I think there is where a lot of companies don't spend enough time and effort in. It's finding out like what are the do's and don'ts, what are things that you need to be concerned about and not be concerned about, especially the last part, the not be concerned about. And what is decision making framework you find important. So, for example, when I started making my frameworks and where I want people make decisions, I told people like, look, I don't care if you do an image ad, video ads, how you do it, what you do it. I don't care about those things. I want to know if the messaging that I had in my mind works or doesn't work. So I want you, by example, to think about like if I do earplugs for traveling in the metro in Paris, amazing. That's an experiment. That's an idea. That's a concept. Let's do an influencer campaign. Let's do an affiliate partner. Let's do an experiment on Meta. Let's see how it works for 2 or 3 experiments. And I want to validate if the angle works for me. That is the level where I, as a head of growth, head of performance, want to be involved in, where I want to know that. But I
Yep.
don't want to know exactly like how they get there to make it profitable. That's up to them to decide. And then when it comes to the agencies, is the same mindset. Like I I let them free as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I think let's take a step back as to when Loop really starts to take off. Because remember the story you told me was super fucking interesting. Like our premise, at Ecomm Architects, even in Q, it's like angles offers, angles offers. That's it. And I believe until you're doing 100 million, you shouldn't think about anything else.
Yeah.
So it's the most highest leverage thing. And it was interesting when I spoke to you and how Loop got to finding all the use cases because they've done that exceptionally well. I think that was their strength. It came from a moment of when it was COVID happened. Now mainly selling to the party goers, as you mentioned, but then
Yeah.
there was no more partying, so they had to invent new use cases for the product. Is that right? And that's how they found these new use cases.
They needed to. They needed to. They
Yeah.
were going bankrupt, right? Like if you are a company that's focused on partying and festivals and suddenly there are no more parties, what do you do then?
Yeah. And it was only because of that they started looking elsewhere in terms of the new use cases.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
started looking for other use cases. They discovered a small community for people who are noise sensitive, people that want to experience less noise around them in their surroundings, people with ADHD and so on. And that little community actually gave them the first millions of revenue growth. And honestly, things that we all speak. I think Matt, you and I, we speak often about how to structure companies and how to find new pockets of growth and those things. But I often experience that companies between 0 and 5 million, 0 and 10 million, it's often one community. It's one messaging angle. It's one community. It's one kind of audience that allows them to get there and squeezing it out for a while, and then they're able to make it, and then it's diversifying in that aspect. So I think Loop really got kind of lucky with COVID.
Yeah.
That they needed to change their marketing strategy and they need to focus on that one, and then we went from there on, and from there on was a paid media influencer marketing game for a while. So that
So what
was
do you reckon? What do you recommend brands like, let's say, at the 100, 200K a month mark? 'Cause I know what we've spoken about is a lot. This is probably high level stuff if you're running, tens of
yeah,
millions of spend. But at the start, you have limited resources, you have unlimited options.
yeah.
Where do you start? How do you start? What are you actually tracking or monitoring? How would you go about, testing on a budget or, trying to find new angles on a budget?
Yeah. So the thing is that I come from the growth marketing scene. The growth
Yeah.
marketing is all about experimentation. It's all about like small pocket, small scale experiments, right? And I think that you have two big levers as an ecom that made big difference. Is you can change your offer.
Yep.
You're probably gonna change in a month, right? You can change your offer a lot. Your offer can change 1+1, 2+1 deals, 20% discount. You can change a lot in a way that it's more appealing. Of course, if you need to, you can also change your branding, like Loop did, from like a festival point to a noise sensitive point. That's also something, but that's more time intensive. But if you have a small budget, it literally just goes into finding yourself a process where you try to test out things. Because people always think like, oh yeah, so complicated to get in there. But I literally like at Loop when I joined, we were spending about, I know, 20, 30, 40K ad spend a month sometimes, like very, very little ad spend. And
Nice.
then we went from like 40K ad spend to like 200K ad spend in less than a couple months. And the reality check there for us is I just started doing experiments myself. I came in, I wrote the briefs that the angles I want to do. One brief was 4 ads, was 4 experiment, was one experiment was one angle we wanted to launch.
Yeah.
I did 4 experiments, 5 experiments. I could do a week. That required from me like one designer that was able to do that for me. I had like maybe a video editor available to make some content internally. And then we just did 5 experiments. And the next week we did 6 experiments. And the next week we did 7 experiments. And then it's like, hey, this is working. Let's hire another person to do more experiments. So it's a very, very linear way on mindset where you don't need to do like these big budgets and so on. Like I'm talking about an experiment that you want to validate, which is for ads, by example, which costs you. I always recommend guys to like 10 times your CPA if you try something out. Even if you're really big, like let's be honest about it, even with the Loop Earplug, we still did like only 10 or 20 times your CPA target to validate one experiment. So the mindset never changed over that whole growth
You're
from 10
saying
to
you're saying like you're gonna allow resource wise 10 times CPA. So let's say CPA is $50. You
yeah.
allow $500 worth of tests, but that $500 will be split across 4 different experiments on that one angle, or how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, no. So I try to make it limited to like one experiment with 10 times CPA. So by example, if my CPA is 50 euros, by example, right?
Yeah.
Then I kind of wanna have at least like 500 euros per one experiment I want to do. So yeah, I
On like
do.
one ad concept or multiple ad
Ad
concepts.
concept. Yeah, one ad concept. Yeah, one
Right.
one one message actually. But and maybe there's also where I'm super aggressively in small scale. If I don't have much budget, imagine my ad spend budget maybe like 3K a month, for example. It's like a very very limited ad spend budget, right? Then yes, in an ideal situation, you want to have 10 times the CPA. That's your good situation. That's where you like I'm held to that. But you also want to try a lot of things out. So you can very, very fast understand after, like, say, running for 2 or 3 days, by example, you can maybe run for 50 euros, by example, a day, run it for 2 3 days, right? And within 2 to 3 days, you can also understand the metrics, as in, do I have a healthy CTR at the moment? Do I have a healthy thumbs
Yeah.
up ratio? Are my ads at the moment getting a little of traction there? Am I getting people that are bouncing my websites, for example? Like, you have these sub metrics that you can very, very fast validate. That's kind of like allows you to already cut half your experiments at like 100 euro spent or 200 euro spent. So
Yeah,
you can
makes
be
sense.
very, very aggressive in that mindset. And I think there is where if you have the time as a founder in the beginning and you have the time as a marketeer in the beginning and you want to reduce your ad spend budgets, it's just look into your bounce ratio per experiment, look into your thumbs up ratio, your CTR per experiment, and be very, very aggressive in scaling and in killing things that are not working. And I think also there is where, in my experience, a lot of companies, they, especially if they're coming from the corporate side, they go wrong because they just want to run for letting it run the data.
Mm.
And you only want to find the winners in kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. So talk to me about like the angle development part. And you guys ruthlessly test so many different angles, and that requires a certain amount of budget. Do you allow like a percentage of that budget to test new angles? Is it 20% of ad spend? Is it 30% of ad spend? And how does that change the more you scale, or does it ever change?
It never changes. It's the same mindset. So as you mentioned, we use 20% of our total ad spend budget can
20%.
go to creators, can go to experimentations, can go to new ideas, new concepts, or iterations based on what's already working, but just new assets, right? So that's a mindset. 20% of our budget goes to new ideas. How it kind of works is that if you have a goal as a company to have like a blended ROAS of, let's say, 3, right? Then you kind of put your ROAS target for everything that should be working slightly higher, as in 3.2, 3.4, just to afford that your experimentation budget, with your
Yeah.
expectations, right? Which is they won't get the same ROAS target as what's already working for you, which makes sense. So you kind of play around with that, and then you have what you should be achieving. And the 20% experimentations, if you spend 100K, it's 20K. If you spend a million, it's 200K. So it just goes linearly, which also means that your amount of assets you need and amount of experiments you need to grow is also linearly.
Mm.
And it goes into funnels mindset and goes into anything else. And the thing is, I always kind of had this mindset for everything we do. So influencer campaigns in new building new funnels, by example, like we have one funnel running now for 100K, we want another funnel for 200K, and then we need extra assets. And it's there where if you build in this view and mindsets, everything gets very processized, everything gets very measurable. As in, I'm running an quiz funnel for 200,000 euros a month. It requires me 10 experiments to maintain it, and then I challenge my team that those 10 experiments need to be very good, so I can spend 15 experiments next month. And it's a very easy game then actually.
Yeah, and one thing I remember you always saying to me, which kind of was an unlock as well, you said, well, in my philosophy now, it's like more angles, more ads, more funnels to more people. And you kind of made it clear to me that, people buy products based on different types of funnels as well. There's certain people that love buying via quiz funnels. People love
Yeah.
buying by advertorials. People love buying, seeing their favorite influencer. Some like the direct response UGC mashups, whatever. Like
Yeah.
how much belief do you have, and what's your mindset around that in terms of testing the new funnels on top of the new angles, and what's your kind of process?
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer. So I'm also really happy that you mentioned this because I'm a firm believer of customer buyer behavior. Is
Yep.
that you have different customers and every single customer likes to have different customer sales cycle. Like I'm a person that like to be more informed about before I might make a purchase. I think Matt, you're like, give me a good deal, be straight to me,
Yeah.
be honest to me, and I'll buy from you.
Yep.
So it's different mindsets and that's totally fine. But that also allows you that I wouldn't buy through a meta ad directly. I would buy through maybe a tutorial funnel if I get more information about it, and it gives me insights on the product. And I think here is where, if you really want to unlock growth on Meta, is I always call it stacking growth because over figured something out that works for you, and then it's like, what is next? What's the next thing you can figure out to also work for you, and like always stacking it. So yeah, I'm a firm believer because also we did this one experiment at Loop. Actually, not we. So I was a firm believer in the quiz funnel working for us at Loop. Like I knew it had some traction. I knew people liked it on the website organically. They were converting to it, but I haven't found a way how to make people convert through the quiz funnel
Got it.
with advertising with Meta on Loop. So I had my funnel strategist, and I think she blamed me for a couple times that she was doing that because she did it for 6 months. So 6 months straight, I
Six
challenged her
months.
to make it work, the quiz funnel. But the moment we made it work, the moment actually it hit it for us, we had like a 20% increase in revenue, like month on month. So
Wow.
I think there is where, and I was talking to Simo literally yesterday about it because he asked me like, Alex, yeah, but then you need to have a lot of trust that you can make it work. Because if you tell somebody to make 6 months to make it work, and after 3 months, most people give up. Most people say, "Yeah, fuck it, this has
Yeah.
been we tried this and this doesn't not working for me," and so on. So yeah, I kind of get it, and honestly, I think it's the same as launching a brand campaign. I think that, if you're brand campaign over CMO and you need to decide on brand campaign, yeah, you cannot do the brand campaign after 1 month or 2 months. And if the brand campaign, you might do it for 6 months, a year, and it doesn't work. Yeah, you only had one shot. But you kind of sometimes need to do it. You need to take those chance or need to take those bets, right? And I think there is where if you are ahead of growth or a CMO and you kind of want to make also those bets on a performance basis. And like, I want to focus on how we can break into young audiences in young people. I want to break into how we can get into editorial funnels, and I want to really do that. Like, you don't want to give just like a quick try and say like, oh, we tried for 2 weeks, didn't work, let's go next. Because then you go into your cycle. Then you go into the same cycle as you already before. You go into, okay, but then let's focus on what's already working for us. And then your growth is just stagnated, or you have like a 20% growth month on month, like year on year mostly. So it's there's where I'm ridiculous aggressive in new things, new angles, new concepts. And I think if you're able to get your team on board, which is a very big part of that, as in
Yeah.
you need to get them on board on the same route, as in we're gonna focus on new angles, new ideas, new concepts, we're gonna make it work. Then I think you'll find something there. But there's also where you do research, and I'll tell you this, it's interesting thing. So, for example, at Loop, we found out through our post-purchase survey data that we ask people questions like, "Hey, where are you going to use your earplugs, and
Yeah.
what are you going to use it for?" Like a simple question. And we found out, for example, that people are using earplugs in restaurants, which is like
Mm.
super interesting concept. Like
Yeah.
never thought about that. But apparently it's true. So we found out that one, and that kind of leveraged us to do some experiments over there. And yeah, about 2 months later, we launched a product that was made for restaurants and with
Restaurants.
20-30% increase in growth. So it's for social gatherings in general mostly. But yeah, so that was the thing for us. So that the thing there is where, yes, you got to make those bets and they will be very painful. And it's good for you to work in a road sprint and not just do it for one and see if it works. Like really map it out for yourself and make a bet out of it to make it work. I think that's a mindset you got to have.
Yeah, I love that mindset. I think that one narrative we push, at Ecomm Architects is very much trying to find that one constraint, unlocking that one constraint. And sometimes, like we tell them, it might take you 6 to 12 months to unlock that constraint. And the
Yeah.
biggest issue is people don't apply the proper resource into locking the constraint. Like you said, they try for a month or two and they fucking quit. And the people that do succeed are the ones like you who actually persist at it, believe in it, and make it work. Now, the question I have for you is that what do you do when? Do you know what I mean? Because you can't do everything. You can't test new funnels, you can't test new angles, you can't test new offers. Like, do you have like, I know there's a lot of nuance in this and everything's contextual, but do you have like a rough framework in someone's mind how they think they should think through it? Like, what's the mindset behind when do I start applying resources to unlock new funnels? At what revenue scale? Or, yeah, talk to me about that.
No, that's so contextual. It kind of all depends on how well the company is growing and how profit you're making in the moment, right? I think
Yeah.
that's super contextual about that topic. But I think you play it safe in the beginning. It's let's be honest about it. Revenue comes from three big columns. It comes from or paid video marketing, or it comes from influencer marketing, or it comes from community marketing, as in asking celebrities for a share of the company to promote you. Right,
Yeah.
that's the third part. So figuring those three things out and what is driving you the revenue in the first three things, that's important. Like I see companies that from 0 to 200 million revenue, it's insane, in 2 years with influencer marketing. Like 70 to
Oh,
80% of the marketing is purely influencer marketing. And then other companies like Loop Earplugs, huge scale through paid media. That's all paid media focused. So it's figuring out like in which niche are you and what is probably the pillar, the growth pillar you're gonna focus on, right? That will drive
yeah.
the revenue growth. And then within those growth pillars, you kind of have segmentation. So within the paid media growth pillar, that's the pillar that works for you most, can work for you the best, or you decide to do that. You gotta focus, yeah, you mostly Meta, right? Let's be honest about it. Like
Mm,
you have channels like Apple and Google and Meta and everything else, and Meta is still the golden nugget for all the e-commerces. It's
100%.
it's still
Yeah.
driving all the revenue. So figuring out meta is the next step. And then we go into experimentations, we go into just direct response marketing experiments, we go into angles, we go into messages and offer testings. And that's what you got to do for the first year. That's like how ecom runs. You just focus on those four things and you'll be fine to figuring it out. Um, but there's a big but here. It also depends from which niche you come from. Because if you're coming from, example, the supplement niche, right?
Yeah.
There, your bread and butter are funnels, your bread and butter are tutorials. So
Yeah.
you kind of need to understand whether within your industry what is that case. And
Yeah.
then on the other side for influencer marketing, you have two options there pretty much. Option one is, or you go for the new audience influencer marketing, where you focus on completely churning out new audiences, new influencers, and so on. Or option two is you go for the streamer markets, where you go and build relationships up with people that stream or make content windlessly, have a good kind of community, and you're able to get really good deals for them long term. That's two mechanics I've seen working in influencer marketing. So that's going to be your first stage of revenue until you do, like, I would say 20 million revenue. I think there's where you should be able to get minimal amount of money with 20 to 30 million revenue without any fancy stuff, without any tutorial funnels, quiz funnels on top of that, unless you're trying
Okay.
to do.
Yeah.
And then from the 30 million, by example, to 100 million, it can become interesting. It depends, of course, in how global you are and in which big country that you're marketing in. For example, if you do 30 million in, let's say, a country like Netherlands, you're doing amazing, you're saturated. If you do 30 million in a country like US, it's peanuts. You guys can
Yeah.
still grow to 80 million easily. But imagine that for the sake of the conversation, we have a 30 million company in let's say, Germany, by example, right? That's doing pretty good. So thereon you can start deciding, okay, we need to diversify and we need to start unlocking new audiences. The reason why I would do that is because the moment I see that my marginal gain on my new experiments is going down substantially. So, for example, if I now do 10 experiments, do tomorrow do 20 experiments, and I see my marginal gain going down in that level, then it becomes more and more interesting to actually do additional things on the side.
Oh, that's
So
good. That's good, like, check light. Yeah.
it's checking. Like you don't want to just say like, oh, I want to diversify for the reason of diversify. No, you kind of need to have the reason, which is your marginal gain is going down. Um,
Or another way to maybe think about it is that just at any moment where the company has enough resources to dedicate solely to that one thing, right?
yeah,
If you're profitable and you can spend 10 grand a month on someone to just do landing pages, just spend the 10 grand a
yes,
month, you know?
yes,
I think that's the way we're kind of thinking about it.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, so there was some still wondering about, and we came in conversation about it. But in most companies, all the experiments are done by the same team. Like you have your HQ team, your business usual team, and then you just put it like, "Hey guys, also want to do funnels, also want to do that." And I'm not sure. I've come to companies who prefer to actually build a separate team, like a small grow team, who just completely be iterating and those things. And other companies, they're like, "No, we can implement in our team because we have the knowledge, we have the data product, and so on. We have the information of product of the audience, so therefore it makes more sense." And I'm slightly leaning lately that if you really want to have a proper ideation structure and like a new concept structure, you might want to split those teams apart slightly. But I'm also wondering what you think about that, Matt.
No, I'm a big fan of splitting it at the moment. I just think that the amount of focus and resources required to win, no matter what you're doing in ecom now, the bar has been raised a lot higher. I don't care what platform it is. If it's fucking Amazon, it's Meta, it's for everything else. So the more attention and focus you can have on a particular process, then you're going to get, outside returns. And I don't think if you're sharing resources for any department, you're leaving meat on the table. I've seen it every time. If I have a creative strategist that's spending 20% of time on one product, 80 on another, she's obviously losing 20%, and the moment she goes all in, she unlocks new angles she never would have thought of just because that additional, I guess, time in her
Right.
mind to think of new things. Yeah, I think landing page is exactly the same. We tried it. We had like an agency board, for example, doing the whole website, CRO. Well, obviously, their time's thinking about the whole website. Then when we came to work with you, like, hey, should we focus on just on paid stuff? I'm like, yeah, fuck, why didn't we think of that earlier? And then when we get a team just to focus on one page instead of a whole website, everything kind of changes.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah, it's just
agree.
again resources and allocation.
It's marketing is all about that now. It's all
Yeah,
about resource allocation. It's very level moment you grow like 20, 30 to 100 million. It's just that's your game. That's the game you're gonna play. And then I think that in combination with making those big bold bets on making new things work. Yeah, there's where we be to brought the loop into the level. I think that is the thing. And then I'll be very honest with you. Then you come into teams and how you build your team around that. Because now
yeah,
we're talking about all this fancy talk about structuring and about expectations and managing people and everything else, right? I made a conscious decision when I started building my team at Loop that I only wanted senior people in my team. Senior people that were willing to jump in the mud with me. Like I want people to be in ad counts and make briefings and make ads and fix last minute landing pages, go into the code and fixing them myself, right? And I think there is where that helped me a lot to scale very fast because I didn't need to coach people. I didn't need to train people. I was very,
mm,
it was like, okay, and also senior people, it's very easy if they don't perform, they kind of know it for themselves. And it's an easy conversation that they're not a match within business, so therefore you can switch them out. Which is an easier conversation than a junior person that you're like, yeah, but maybe you didn't have coaching, or maybe she needed more advice. It's a difficult perspective. So yeah,
yeah. And I think you're right. And let's transition just lastly to AI a bit. And I want to give you a perspective on the creative strategy department. For me, personally, it's one thing I always push home as well. Creative is the most important thing for any business up until probably 100 mil. I still believe that. I don't give a shit.
um,
You need to unlock creative and understand that. And, you know, before I was thinking that you need a lot more resource than potentially you need moving forward to do creative strategy because of AI. And you're building an AI, I guess, software or app that we're using, that we're finding very useful. So talk to me about how you see creative strategy moving forward with AI and the app that you're building and how that can potentially help brands.
exactly. So, let's be honest about it. AI is flattening the playground for e-commerce businesses, right?
Yeah.
It's just there. So the reality is that AI allows you to make any single content. Like you see, content AI is doing amazingly well. The nimbleness, like you found one content creator works well within 2 days. The one content creator has made 6, 7 other angles. Like you just had the same face, but then let them talk about another angle.
Yeah.
So you only need like the core avatar almost, like the core content creator that was working for you, by example. And then once that's validated, like a whole new world opens up to which you can achieve within less than a day or 2 days of producing that content. So it means that everybody, and I'm seeing this a lot, like everybody is playing around with making more content, with being very more cost efficient also on cost per asset. So that's definitely a thing. So it causes everybody It causes more competition, which is the reality. Like if you find one winning thing as a company, within a couple of days, it gets stolen from like the format. Everybody's using the same format. So the reality for us is that as an ecom founder, you're gonna look more into how can I make sure that I have good operations, I have low OpEx, I have really low cost per assets, because you need to make it. Honestly, it's a ROAS game lately.
Yeah.
It's ROAS need to be there, and the lower your ROAS are, the more margin you'll get. I see companies now scaling to like with a ROAS of 1.4, for example, a two-man company that do like 20 million revenue, with two people in there. It's just two
Yeah.
founders. That's it. You have two founders and two freelancers from Philippines.
Yeah.
They
Fuck.
built a ROAS of 1.4. I'm like, nobody can compete against that.
Yeah.
That's
And,
impossible.
and you know what? That's a quick segue as to finding the leverage points to win the game instead of just pushing tactics uphill. Meaning that
Yeah.
it's more you setting up the game to win is a more high leverage thing than working out potentially the best creator or marketing angle. Because I see the same thing, right? People want to think of this Facebook as like this natural CAC, right? It's going to give you a
Yeah.
certain CAC, but who can afford to spend more to acquire that customer is going to win. And the
Of
people that
course.
do that, who have the better margins, understand their payback periods better and have the lowest OPEX.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
can do that, I think Jordan Menard, a friend of mine, instant hydration, they went
Yeah.
to 100 mil in 1 year just because he understands his payback period and he can spend into it more than anyone else. You look at his
Yeah.
Facebook ads library, he's not doing anything groundbreaking. You look at his product, his brand, there's nothing different. Honestly, it's the same
Oh,
shit.
I
But
know,
if I
right?
looked at his ad account, his just ROAS is a lot lower because he understands the payback period. So that's something people have to really think about. How can you
Yeah.
lower your OPEX to get operational leverage? How can you
Yes.
increase your margin? And how can you
Yes.
understand your payback period?
Couldn't agree more. So that's topic one on AI, right? That's topic
Yeah.
one on AI. That's flattening the playground and cleaning your OpEx and your margins. The second thing is that what becomes very, very, very important right now, because you get more content access and so on, is looking to marginal gains. So that is where I'm focusing heavily on, with also with AI tools and which we're building, and I'm really happy to mention that, Matt. So what I'm trying to now achieve is that I'll tell you, the mindset I have in companies, I come in and I start analyzing like, oh, you made 20% blue ads, 30% red ads, and 10% yellow ads, for example, right? But your
Yeah.
30% red ads, right, are actually only representing 10% of the revenue. So you're kind of missing there a little bit opportunity, and you should maybe make less red ads and maybe more yellow ads, as example. But that mindset goes into everything you do. It goes into CRO experiments. It goes into influencer campaigns. It goes into affiliate. It goes into all the angles and messaging you test. And what AI is very, very, very strong at is identifying that whole flow. Like, what are you doing at the moment? And if you correlate that back to the revenue, should you be doing that, or should you be doing more or less of that? I think that's a very strong thing that with AI, which we're building out, is that you can analyze your whole marketing, like everything
Yeah.
single you do.
That's
You
nuts.
can analyze which products you're advertising. You can analyze which angles you're doing. You can analyze which funnels you're running, which funnels your competitors are running, which CROs that your competitors are running, by example. You can literally do that. You can listen like IPs to them. So like, look, screen record me 300 sessions of their links pages, and let me know which kind of sessions are going to the best winning CRO experiment they're running on that site.
Yeah.
Plus, you know what's working for them. So it means that the research phase from it can what it goes to is that now at the moment it's still AI learning how to read the data and get there, and that's what we're building right now. We're building that model that reads other competitors and your own marketing data, and then tells you exactly what you should be doing, what you should be focusing on. So that's what we're building with Foresight IQ. Um, but that's step one. Step two is that it will kind of start replacing or supporting your head of growth CMO. And it will kind of start telling your team, like, guys, I want
Mm.
this future, I want these angles, right? And then the next step for me will be that will talk into another agent that, by example, will make you ads or will
Yeah.
make you user content. So the whole flow of marketing is getting very interesting. Like we used to spend by example, we use data analysts that spend literally like months and months building dashboards and getting insights. Now with Shopify AI, you have it instantly. By example, insights. With other tools, you have it insight instantly. So that's one fix, right? You don't need expensive data analysts anymore. That's a high level view. The second level view is your operations, your PM, your project management will also be completely reduced to almost zero, because you cannot have AI do that for you, the project management. That's with agents you can implement that. And then the next things will be the operations, like media buyers, by example. Like you now see your rise in Claude and people I have founders, literally founders, who are doing like 3-4 million a month in ads, in marketing, in revenue, and they don't have a media buyer anymore. They literally, this founder itself built himself something in Rise of AI and like a whole model to do media buying. And I was amazed with that. So I was like, okay, interesting. And then he does an agency, by example, to double check and triple check the data. So that's what he
Yeah.
definitely needed.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it goes wild.
Yeah. The future's nuts. Interesting.
Fun. It's
Yeah.
fun, but it's also, I feel it's still Westworld, man. It feels like a Westworld. It feels like we're still in this way of cowboy lands where the cowboys are now discovering the prairies a little bit. They're discovering like what is working, and nobody still is using it properly.
Yeah.
So
And, and
until
I would push people to fucking hurry up, because the way I see this is that the quicker people work this out, the more they're going to be spending money on ads because they can afford to, and then they're going to win the ad auction against you,
yes,
and you're going to be fucked. So hurry up, get on the AI bandwagon, optimize your OPEX, so you can pour more money into marketing, which is pretty much everyone's whole P&L these days for e-commerce brands. And yeah, I'm sure they'll anything. So last thing, let me know for 2026, what do you see the landscape like? Do you have any parting words for any brands? Any advice? Anything new?
Um, the landscape of 2026. I think one thing is that it's going to be very performance heavy landscape. Performance marketing is just getting bigger. AI is helping the process more than ever before. Competition will be higher, and I think if you really want to grow in 26, it's going to be all about reducing your OPEX, increasing decreasing your ROAS targets and increasing your CPA levels.
Yeah.
It's that is a game you want to play lately, and there is where I think I see these companies doing amazing, incredible things with super lean and mean teams. Like honestly, Matt, I have huge amount of respect also for you and you're building your team because you have a very lean and mean team. You're running an 80 to 90 million econ company here. You have a very good OPEX also. Like it's incredible to see how you run your team there. I think that's something a lot of people can learn from you, like how to structure that and how to focus your team to the essence. So
Okay.
there's where my advice would be, as in have a look at your team structure and build fundamentally with AI, with a lean and mean mindset. And then you will able to make some really big moves in 26.
Love it. Love it. Look, man, I can't thank you enough from my perspective in helping Cure. You've been instrumental in getting us to, like you said, 19, probably 100 mil this year. Where can people find you, and how can they potentially work with you?
Yeah, love to. Thank you. Well, honestly, at the moment, open advisory, so you can always just go to my LinkedIn, and let me know through a chat, by example, or by example, you can also email to alexander@d2ccollect.com. At the moment, pretty much focusing on bigger projects, helping companies scale up their creative teams, performance teams, and also doing incrementality checks, as in incremental issue marketing, and can we get it even more incremental. Better margins means that you can spend more money on things that matter. So that's where I'm focusing now. But yeah, thank you for having me, Matt, on the podcast. And also maybe shout out back to you. I think honestly, Ecomm Architects is one of the most undervalued e-commerce business at the moment, e-commerce communities at the moment that is on the market.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate
I would
that.
definitely advise everybody to at least go to your courses and go to your classes and speak to the experts they have in house because they are at top level. And I know you've been shouting about it on LinkedIn, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
work with them. I know them and I truly also admire them. So I hope everybody can learn a lot from you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot. Cheers.